Asiata.
Oh shit. Let me.
Take your time.
Okay.
I could watch Ponder continue to be terrible.
I could watch it all night long. All right. Here we go. And we're live. Week 5, quarterbacks, tight ends. Nope, not quarterbacks, tight ends. Week 5, running backs, tight ends. Looking at your FanDuel and DraftKings value picks while my Packers continue to whoop up on the Vikings 28-0. It's a thing of beauty. So let's do something else I also love, and let's make some money with these value picks this week. Let's start off with the running backs. Andre Ellington is our first value pick, running back from Arizona, playing in Denver this week. 5,600 on DraftKings, 6,800 on FanDuel. Tell me why you like him, Alex.
I like him because he's probably the healthiest he's been all year long. He had the bye week, obviously, last week to get that foot more in shape for the foreseeable future. Also, the Denver defense hasn't really been all that great against the run. I'm looking it up right now just to see what their opponent rank is on DraftKings. They are listed as, let's see here. For some reason, Ellington is not showing up. Hold on.
I'll touch on what you said, right? His foot is definitely healthier now than it's been all year. Week 1, we didn't even think he was going to play. Week 2 and 3, he's obviously recovering. Without Dwyer there, he's clearly going to. I think he's definitely going to get more work. I think goal line back. So without him there, I like Ellington to actually stay in the game in the red zone, whereas previously he probably wasn't. And not to mention, he's also a value out of the backfield, getting you those points per reception or half point in FanDuel as well.
Right. I still think that when Palmer comes back, his value is really gonna be really where we see the value for Ellington catching those extra balls for extra yards when he's able to throw the ball downfield to guys like Michael Floyd and John Brown, while give you John Carlson and Larry Fitzgerald. I just found the opponent rank. They're 24th against running backs so far this year, so they are prone to give up things through the ground. With Drew Stanton, they're going to need to run the ball obviously a little bit more than they would in a game that's scoring a lot of points. Ellington is a good bet to at least get in the end zone once and knock off nice chunks of yards in a high-powered offensive game.
Here we go. Not to mention, if Denver coming off a bye at home, they're heavily favored. I mean, if they run up the score at all, you're also going to look at Ellington to again catch passes out of the backfield, get some junk time points for you there. So definitely a good play.
Especially on catches. Notice when you're down big, it's one of those 5-yard dump offs. Even if it's 3rd and 20, you get a 5-yard dump off pass and catch and run for 15 yards on a catch. That's 2.5 points per dump off play. So that always adds up. So even if Denver does run up the score, that's a positive for Ellington.
Always a possibility. I love it. Looking at our next value play, we'll move on quickly to the G-Men hosting the Falcons this week. Rashad Jennings, 5,500 in DraftKings, 7,200 in FanDuel. I like him in both leagues. I think he's a value pick because that Atlanta defense is so bad against the run. I think that Rashad takes a bounce back. He ran 30 times, I think it was, in week 3, and then week 4 he had the short week, so he didn't see the ball as much. They got Andre Williams involved quite a bit. I think you'll see Rashad Jennings pick that back up, get 20-plus carries again this week. He's also a threat out of the backfield again, which I like a lot. And at that price, I mean, for a number one back, and he's getting anywhere between 15 and he saw 30-plus touches a couple weeks ago. I mean, for this price point, you can't beat him.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only reason he wasn't really heavily involved last week was because they got off to such a big lead pretty quickly with Eli throwing all those touchdowns to Larry Donnell. It just they didn't really need to use him like they have in the first 3 weeks. This is a week where they may score points, but at the same time the Falcons are gonna score a lot of points on their defense as well. So they're gonna have to keep the offense pretty balanced, and they're gonna have to run the ball with Jennings. And as you said earlier, Atlanta is dead last against running backs in daily leagues this year. Um, they made Matt Asiata look like an actual decent running back, and we all know that story. He runs for less than 3 yards per carry, but he had more than that against the Falcons.
Not just that, they made the Vikings look like a competent offense, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and not just competent, like top tier. I mean, they torched the Falcons defense for, I think, 500 plus total yards. I mean, that's pretty ridiculous. So we have to touch on somebody who actually we got a comment on our last video from Douglas Reddig, who mentioned that we missed out on Eli as a value pick this week. And I got to agree with him, right? If we're looking at somebody who made Teddy Bridgewater look good, Eli's got to be a value pick right there with Rashad Jennings.
Right, unless you're Michael Fabiano.
Right, who says to sit him, but
it's just I don't get him.
Yeah, we'll move on. We don't work for the league, unfortunately, but Michael does, so he's the fortunate one. But anyway, Rashad Jennings, again, great value there, 5,500 in DraftKings, 7,200 in FanDuel. We'll move on to somebody I added right before the show. He's, I think, still questionable, but they're saying that he's highly probable to play this Sunday. Ben Tate for the Browns going up against the Titans. He's only 5,000 in DraftKings, 6,200 in FanDuel. So he's a little bit more expensive than some of the people we're even going to talk about going forward. But I think you got to like him because they're saying that once he comes back, he's going to take the majority of carries back with it, right? He's not going to have to earn those carries back from Terrence West or from Isaiah Crowell. But Crowell is leaping west, so just keep that in mind if you're looking for a value play there too. But Ben Tate, Alex, I mean, I know it's a hesitation. You know, you're not 100% confident in him, but if you're doing multiple entries, maybe you want to take a leap of faith on Tate this week, especially going up against the Titans defense. DeMarco Murray run, roughshod over him.
Yeah, he's definitely more of a guy that you would want to play in a tournament versus a 50-50 because of,
Yes.
like we've talked about in the past, guys that
much higher risk
that have that potential to get injured. You don't really want to play them in 50-50s because of that opportunity. Like one knock, they're out for the rest of the game, like a Vernon Davis or a Percy Harvin or someone to that ilk. Ben Tate's starting. We've seen in the past. He's a very talented runner. He's a guy that can catch balls out of the backfield. He can run for nice chunks of yards. On the play that he got hurt, he had a big, I think it was 25-yard run in week 1. He looked pretty good.
He looked very good in week 1.
He was healthy, and if he's starting, he's a guy that is criminally underpriced, in my opinion. If he that he will play a full game, 100 yards and a touchdown is not out of the realm of possibility. And the way they've been running the ball with guys that are considered less talented, even though, in my opinion, West and Crowell are both very talented running backs, but their commitment to the run because of the lack of weapons in the passing game and the health concerns regarding Jordan Cameron, they're forced to run the ball, and if you're going to get the majority of touches on a team that likes to run the ball, you're a good bet for good fantasy points on any week.
Exactly. So, again, I maybe more recommend him in something where you're doing multiple entries. If it is a tournament play, he's probably not someone you want to hang your hat on, but someone you're more saying, okay, I'm gonna take one shot with this roster on a bunch of people who could blow up. I think he's one of those guys that you're looking at. Moving forward, we've got Bishop Sankey. We're gonna flip the script on that game. Bishop Sankey for the Titans going up against the Browns. He's 4,700 in DraftKings, 5,900 in FanDuel. There's rumors all over the place that he's going to be, I haven't seen officially anything about him starting on Sunday, but that he's getting more involved with the offense there, and he's definitely a back that's, you get him in space, you get him on a screen or on a dump off. I mean, he's got great moves and great talent, we just haven't seen anything put together yet. So what do you think of Sankey this week, Alex?
I actually really like Sankey. I wrote about him in my Week 5 risers as Mark is fist pumping for Eddie Lacy's touchdown.
Yeah, baby.
I just finished, as I was saying, I was just finished writing about him in my risers that I posted today. The only issue with Sankey has been so far the usage concerns, and that Ken Wisenhunt was concerned with his footwork, not his running ability. It was just his footwork and pass protection and overall footwork. The last 2 weeks, I think he had 29 snaps in Week 3, and he only had 24 in Week 4, and somehow still led the backfield in snaps per game. He's been the best runner the past 2 weeks by far. Wisenhunt has already said that they plan on getting him more involved and getting him involved earlier in the game.
Mm-hmm.
At this price, I don't know. I kind of want to see what he would do with a bigger workload, just because at 4,700, I feel like there are better plays, especially this week, where you have higher upside than a guy that you don't really know how many touches he's going to get. But if you believe in Wisenhunt and you believe that he wants to get Sankey more involved, he's a very talented runner, and those extra touches are going to get him a lot of extra fantasy points, and it almost, in my opinion, guarantees him a shot at the end zone in a game that I feel like with the Titans and the Browns, it's going to be one of those like back and forth, a lot of running the ball, like still kind of tight 27-24 games where the defense still plays well, but like most of the damage is done on the ground. He's going to run the ball. He's going to get points, but I feel like just for this week, I like him more going forward, but for this week, I just want to see his usage increase before I'm ready to play him in daily leagues.
And especially, I hear you talking about his usage and looking at his price compared to other guys that, you know, not only that we've already talked about that, but that we're going to talk about. He's more expensive in DraftKings, you know, in a ratio perspective than he is in FanDuel. So I really don't like him in DraftKings because of that higher price tag. But looking at 5,900 in FanDuel, when you're comparing him to, and I'll spoil some of the names we're going to talk about, you know, a Chris Ivory or an Ahmad Bradshaw, or even to Ben Tate. I mean, he's cheaper than them, so he could provide you just as much value as like a Ben Tate this week or an Ahmad Bradshaw. But, you know, in DraftKings, these other guys that we're going to talk about are much cheaper. So we'll halt the talk on Bishop Sankey and move forward to someone who we think can provide you value on both sides, and that's on both leagues, and that's Ahmad Bradshaw. Going up against Baltimore this week, he's 4,000 in DraftKings, 6,600 in FanDuel. So there's a guy who you see the opposite of Sankey, right? DraftKings has him pretty discounted, whereas FanDuel doesn't. And I think FanDuel has it right here, though. He's definitely more valuable than a lot of the other backs out there. I mean, he seems to get into the end zone every week, give you 40 to 50 rushing yards, give you a handful of catches out of the backfield. So he's going to get you double-digit points every single week, it seems. Against Sankey, I like Bradshaw better. What about you?
See, personally, if you're going to talk about, for this week specifically, if you're going to go the Sankey versus Bradshaw route, I would rather play Sankey. I know that Bradshaw's gotten the end zone four times in the last 3 games, but he's going up against a defense that's a lot better than the last 3 that he's faced. He played the Titans last week, he played the Jaguars the week before, and obviously Philadelphia without Kendricks week 2. Also, the increasing usage somehow, I don't know why or how, he's getting more involved. Trent Richardson is somehow back in the mix. That kind of muddles this backfield a little bit. And Baltimore has only given up the fifth best defense against the run in fantasy this year. It's going to be a little tougher for them to run the ball than we think it is. His value is really going to come pushing and running and maybe getting that touchdown and keeping that streak alive from Luck. But I think we see Sankey as more of the guy that's going to be featured, whereas with the increased usage of Richardson, it's going to be more of a 50-50 split. It's just, if you believe that Bradshaw is a better bet to get in the end zone, you'd rather play Bradshaw with the price decrease. But I view Sankey as a guy that might get more touches than Bradshaw this week and therefore has a higher upside.
Yeah, and you mentioned Baltimore's run D. I more think of Bradshaw being used as their guy out of the backfield just because Indy's run O is so bad. right? Bradshaw gets a lot of his work on the outside and via those dump passes and screens and everything. So I think he's still getting you value there in those receptions. But again, I think they're really similar plays. It just depends on how much money you have left, and really your risk threshold as to how much you want to invest into that position.
Bradshaw, I would give Bradshaw a higher floor, but I think Sankey has the higher upside. Because I think Bradshaw's a safer bet to get in the end zone, and he's a safer bet for more catches. But I think Sankey, with being more involved and kind of pushing Sean Green and McCluster out of the mix, that he could wind up with 25 to 30 touches in some way and even get 6 to 8 catches, and he can do a lot with those touches.
And that's what I'm saying, right? I think Bradshaw is more of your 50-50 play, and Bishop Sankey's probably more of your tournament play.
Right.
This week. Moving on to our next guy, Chris Ivory of the Jets, traveling over to San Diego to go up against the Chargers. He is dirt cheap this week on DraftKings, going at 3,100. He's up at 6,200 on FanDuel. So again, you see FanDuel. Honestly, obviously we don't know the formulas that they use to create these salaries, but it really seems like DraftKings overcorrected here. I mean, Ivory's been used quite a bit. He ran pretty well last week against a very tough Lions defensive front. I like him a lot. That San Diego defense, I think, has overperformed the past couple weeks, but I mean, overall, they've throttled down Marshawn Lynch. They played really well in Buffalo, but at this price point in DraftKings, I mean, what do you think, Alex? At 3,100?
Yeah, this is too cheap for Chris Ivory. I know that there's still the running back by committee with him and Chris Johnson, and obviously Geno still getting in the mix with the rushing. But Chris Ivory has shown this season that he is far and above a better and definitely more consistent back than Chris Johnson is. Chris Johnson has come from a big play here or there, or getting in the end zone in certain games. But we've seen 8 rushes for 9 yards. We've seen every time he touches the ball on first down, he can barely get back to the line of scrimmage. When Chris Ivory gets in the game, you know what you're getting. You're getting 4+ yards on a carry. You're going to get him to beat a defender. The only issue concerning me that I'm concerned with regarding Ivory is that last week he started on the first series. He had 9 carries for 51 yards, and then after that, Rex and Morningweg kind of didn't really do much, and he only finished with 17 attempts for 84 yards. That's got to be a concern going forward, is that you just don't know when he's going to really see the field, and that kind of muddles his ups. At 3,100, especially in a 50-50, he's a guy that's guaranteed to get you 70 yards on at least 15 touches. He's a good, strong runner. He could break off anything and maybe get into the end zone. He's not a safe bet for a touchdown. He has touchdown ability. He's a very good runner. If by some stretch of the imagination, Morningweg and Rex figure out that Chris Johnson just doesn't really have anything in the tank other than maybe being a third down pass catching back, Ivory should be given the rock as much as humanly possible.
And I really think that money comes in here, real money, not DraftKings and FanDuel money, in that they paid Chris Johnson so much that I just don't see them, just giving up on him and making him a third down back, and it's unfortunate for Chris Ivory, because I think he is the harder runner and he's given it more than Johnson this year. But we're not GMs, we're just fantasy guys talking right now. So let's leave that game, move on to our next battle. The Ravens, the opposite of the Ahmad Bradshaw game. The Ravens going against Indy. Lorenzo Taliaferro going for 3,000 in DraftKings, 5,500 in FanDuel. You chose him this week, Alex, and so tell me why you like him, and then I want to kind of spit some stuff off you after.
Bare minimum pricing for Taliaferro, for a guy that's gotten in the end zone 2 straight weeks. against the Colts defense that isn't really all that great against the run. Their defense isn't really the story. In Indy, it's more Andrew Luck in that offense that's churning and clicking on all cylinders. Taliaferro has shown 2 weeks in a row that he is very talented back. They actually sat Pierce throughout the game last week, even though he was active, because Taliaferro and Forsett were running the ball well. The only issue with this backfield is the fact that there are 3 guys that on any given night, depending on how Kubiak feels, could just get the ball with it, and that's definitely a concern for regular fantasy leagues as well as daily fantasy leagues, because you don't know what you're getting with each guy every week. But in my opinion, Taliaferro is the most talented of the 3. Forsett's more of a down, catch and run kind of guy. Pierce is more of a plodding runner. And Taliaferro has the real skill set that fits in Kubiak's system. He's more of a tournament play, in my opinion. Oh, sorry, go ahead. No, you're good.
No, I mean you really hit on what I was gonna bounce off you, is that he's your, none of those guys can really be counted on week to week, right? It's a toss up as to who's going to get the ball. It's even a toss up as to who's going to get the ball in the red zone. I mean, different guys score left and right. Justin Forsett, really, talented guy, apparently getting very, very high yards per carry average, but he's not giving the starting opportunity, right? They gave it to Taliaferro. They've been saying he's going to get it back. I mean, I think he's a very high-risk play here, Taliaferro. I do like him at $3,000, but I just think he's a higher risk, and like you said, he's again one of those guys that you're looking at in a tournament play where you're going to probably put in multiple entries, because I wouldn't be confident that I'm going to place by playing Taliaferro this week.
Right, exactly. He's more of a tournament play just because this week I think Pierce is going to get on the field and he's going to get his touches, which is going to definitely limit Taliaferro's upside. But if you need a punt play, there are definitely worse options than Taliaferro at $3,000. Somebody that you know is going to touch the ball at least 10 times, hopefully more if Kubiak plays it right. But for a guy that probably is going to wind up with 10 touches, maybe like 2 catches and 60 yards, maybe has a chance to get in the end zone, he's got nice upside for a guy at a $3,000 price tag.
So actually, I want to use that to move on to our next guy, Kyrie Robinson. The Saints hosting the Bucs this week. He's going for $3,000 on DraftKings as well. He's $4,900 on FanDuel versus Taliaferro's $5,500. I'd take Kyrie over Taliaferro in both leagues, personally, because I think he's the guy that's going to get, he's going to get more carries. And Pierre Thomas has been, he's getting, I guess you could say he's getting the goal line looks there, but even then, Thomas isn't exactly vulturing a ton of touches and red zone carries. I think Robinson's the better value this week.
Yeah, definitely. The reason we're bringing up Taliaferro is because he has that upside, but he's also at that bare bones price. But at the same time, Kyrie's also at that bare bones price. So this was more of we wanted to kind of bring these guys up together to discuss them together because of their same price, and who you'd rather play in that situation to save you money on the rest of your roster. It's got to be Kyrie. Kyrie has shown since Ingram went down, more explosive runner out of the backfield. He actually can catch passes. Like, I know we've made mention of it in the past that I know Pete specifically doesn't think that Kyrie can catch passes, but he's shown over the past couple weeks that he actually can catch passes, and he's been included in the passing. And the thing with Pierre Thomas is, where is Pierre Thomas? Travis Cadet was on the field a ton more than him when on Peyton's decision. Pierre Thomas had, 4 touches last week? That's not good. And when you're basically only one of 3 guys that Peyton trusts from the beginning of the season that was expected to do nice things this year, I don't trust Travis Cadet as a runner, so they're going to give the ball to Kyrie. They're playing the Bucs. They're going to be up. They're at home. They're going to throw the ball a lot and get a lot of points through the air. And at the end of the game, they're just going to hand the ball to Kyrie, and Kyrie's going to get you a lot of junk points.
Exactly, and like I said, if I'd prefer him as the punt. He's the punt play this week, if you ask me in DraftKings. I mean, I don't think you're going to get better value than Robinson this week. But we'll give the listeners one more $3,000 DraftKings back, and that's Carlos Hyde. Niners hosting the Chiefs this week. He's going for, again, 3,000 DraftKings, 5,900 in FanDuel. FanDuel, I think they've priced him a bit high because of the game he had last week. But again, 3,000 in DraftKings, you could have worse at 3,000 in DraftKings, but I'd prefer Kyrie. I think I'd even prefer Talia Fair to Hyde this week, because with Hyde you're still hoping that Gore either goes down and Hyde goes crazy, or you're hoping for a touchdown with Hyde.
Right, and Hyde has gotten those two touchdowns in the 4 weeks this year, but we've seen his usage been pretty inconsistent so far, and also the running game in general from the 49ers has been pretty inconsistent, and they haven't run the ball as much as we had hoped they would at the beginning of the year. But at the same time, if you're just looking at the three of these guys from a pure talent perspective, Hyde is hands down the most talented of the three. It's just that Taliaferro and Kyrie Robinson are in a much better position, and they're in line to get more carries. It's just the only way that I see Hyde, other than the things that you said, that where Hyde would get points if Gore goes down or something along that, or just getting in the end zone. But if they go up big against the Chiefs, which I really think they can if they run the ball early and often, the Patriots aren't that good. And in my opinion, that doesn't make the Chiefs all that good.
You can't make that your barometer.
Yeah, that's not a game that you really want to take too much stock in, even though they looked great. But I don't think the Chiefs are that good. They're a little weak on defense, and if they're up a lot, there's no reason for them to give the ball to Gore as they run out the clock, because they want to preserve him for the rest of the year and keep him healthy. So the ball is going to get in Carlos Hyde's hand, and he could get a lot of jump points like Kyrie will.
Right.
Definitely a tournament play. If what the heck, why not? Like, if you want to stack your team with wide receivers and go with Kyrie and Hyde as your running backs and save money on everything in a tournament, that's an interesting play, but it's not something that I would definitely recommend. If we're gonna pick from the three, it's definitely got to be Kyrie at 3,000.
Yeah, I agree there. So we'll recap. Just looking at Andre Ellington, Rashad Jennings, Ben Tate, Bishop Sankey, Ahmad Bradshaw, Chris Ivory, Lorenzo Taliaferro, Kyrie Robinson, and Carlos Hyde. Those are our running backs that we went through this week. Really quickly, what we mentioned last week, if I can pull them up. Give me 1 second. Let's see. The running backs we mentioned last week were Amaya, who scored, Eddie Lacy, who scored. Didn't get you,
He didn't do too much, though.
He hosed me. I played him. He still got you double digits. He got you in the end zone, so he wasn't an absolutely terrible play. Especially in DraftKings, he was pretty low priced, but he didn't get you everything you wanted. So
yeah.
We mentioned Matt Asiata, who was a huge value. We mentioned Sankey and Hyde again. Also Frank Gore. I mean, Gore was a beautiful, beautiful play last week. I hope everybody took us up on that. He wasn't bare minimum, but he was damn close at 4,500 in DraftKings last week. So
low end running back too for nothing.
He definitely helped me out there. Donald Brown was a big swing and a miss. We've commiserated quite a bit on him already, so I don't want to get angry in this podcast. But that's
Donald Brown, I hate you.
I think that's what 99% of the population is saying right now. So yeah, we'll move on. We also recommended Alfred Morris, who didn't do too hot.
He caught passes. I was so confused. He actually caught the ball. I saw that he had 3 receptions, and I freaked out. I could not believe my eyes.
It was out of necessity. I mean, it was out of necessity.
Of course it was. They don't want to throw him the ball, but just the fact that they threw him the ball and he actually caught him and didn't drop him or whatever with it, it was just impressive in my eyes that he actually was able to catch a pass and actually caught 3 of them.
Yeah. We for tight ends, let's actually move on to tight ends this week, and then we'll recap who we talked about last week. Let's see. So it says we currently have 3 viewers, so I just want to tell the viewers, if you want to hit us up on Twitter, at MN Milano, or at, how do you pronounce your last name?
Hanowitz. Alex Hanowitz. It's easy. If you see my name in the thing, it's easy. If you're
At
Jewish,
Alex
you'll know how to
Hanowitz.
spell it. If you're Jewish, you'll know how to spell it.
There you go. So hit us up on those if you guys have questions. We'll answer them for you. All right, we'll move on to the tight ends. Our first tight end, we're going to stick with the Browns here. Browns against the Titans. Jordan Cameron coming back. I think he's in the same boat as Ben actually Ben Tate or Andre Ellington. He's healed up. He had a bye week. He's probably healthier now than he's been all season. 4,400 in DraftKings, 6,000 in FanDuel. So DraftKings with a pretty significant looking discount on him. Do you think he can finally come in and take a lot of those targets that we all thought he was going to get once Gordon officially was suspended?
Yeah, I think he's going to have to if the Browns have any chance of winning this game, even against a poor Titans team. This is as healthy as he's been all year. He finally practiced in full on Wednesday. The arrow's pointing up for Cameron, and if Hoyer wants to win games through the air and not just forcing the rock and Ben Tate or Terrence West or Isaiah Crowell, he has to find Cameron and he has to get him involved. Free up a little extra space for Andrew Hawkins and maybe Austin to get in the end zone. This is the guy that is clearly the most talented pass catcher other than Josh Gordon, but obviously Josh Gordon's out. The most talented pass catcher on this offense. He's shown all last year why he was so highly rated coming into the season and during the season. He's a guy that can have monster. If he was a wide receiver, he'd be an easy low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3 weekly play. You don't really find that all that much in tight ends with that kind of freakish athletic ability and the ability to almost play as a wide receiver. But Cameron's one of those guys, and at this cheap of a price for a guy that he's scored 3 touchdowns before, he's had a lot of 100-plus yard games, he's had 10 reception type games before. He's a guy with mounds and mounds of upside at this cheap a price against a matchup that is pretty favorable. I see him having a pretty nice day, and for that cheap of a price, it's almost a must play.
I agree. I think he's cheap enough. The value's there. My only hesitation is still that it's the Browns for me are pretty unpredictable. I mean, I don't know. I just don't get a warm and fuzzy from them that they'll be consistently putting up those types of points. So that's my only hesitation on him. But at 4,400, I think his price and 6,000. I think his price is just gonna go up from here. So you may not find a better value from Jordan Cameron from here on out. Our next tight end that we're gonna touch on, Dwayne Allen, Colts tight end, going up against Baltimore again. 3,000 on DraftKings, 5,500 on FanDuel. We spoke about him last week. He got you, if I'm not mistaken, he got in the end zone last week.
He got in the end zone.
So, it's interesting with Indy because you see Kobe Fleener get a lot of that publicity. You see him get, a lot of the love from the other, talking heads out there. I really think Dwayne Allen is the one that's going to get you in the end zone more often than Fleener, right? And I think he'll get you the better games. I don't think he'll have a Larry Donald type of game where he's going to catch three touchdowns because Luck just passes the ball to everybody more so than Eli does. But at 3,000, I mean, this week in particular, you're going to find some good plays at tight end for cheap. But Dwayne Allen, I think, is as good as any if you're looking for a fun play at 3,000.
Sorry, you're getting all robot-y again.
No. All right, one sec.
I'll pick up as soon as you want to start, though.
You start talking, I'll do this in the background.
Okay. All right, so Dwayne Allen, for a guy that has gotten 3 touchdowns in 4 games and is going for the bare minimum price on DraftKings, he's so good. He's the most talented tight end in Indianapolis. We've talked about this week in and week out. The only issue is obviously the consistency between him and Fleener, even though him and Fleener both got in the end zone. if both guys are going to get in the end zone. Sorry, hold on. Give me 1 second.
We've got some external participants there. So as Alex takes care of his background noise and his roommates, again, Dwayne Allen at 3,000. I think on DraftKings he's a great punt play. I don't think we really need to waste all that much time on him because we've got some pretty decent plays at tight end this week. We'll just move straight into Travis Kelce, who's the same price, $3,000 on DraftKings, but $5,300 on FanDuel. He's going up against the 49ers. You're not going to get the same production out of Kelce this week that you got last week, right? So he's not going to get you another 20-plus point performance because San Francisco's defense is definitely better than New England's. But at 3,000 for DraftKings, I mean, I just don't see how you can't play somebody who's getting screen passes now out of the back, little dump offs. Again, at full point PPR in DraftKings, you can't discount Kelce at all, especially at $3,000. So, Alex, tell me I know you have the biggest man crush on Kelce, just as big as I do, but how can you not play him for $3,000 this week?
First of all, there is no person on this planet that has a bigger man crush for Travis Kelce than I do. The guy's a freak. He's increased his use. He's increased snaps and his production every single week this year. He's finally starting to explode, and he's getting in the end zone. He's become, in my opinion, the borderline number one option in the passing offense for the Chiefs that likes to run the ball. At 3,000 for a guy that is basically Gronkowski, there's no reason for anyone to ever not play him at this price. I guarantee you I will be playing Kelce in my tight end slot in every single 50-50 or tournament that I do this week. As long as his price is at this, it goes back to the thing I was talking about with Ertz. Until Ertz is above 6,000, I feel the need to play Ertz every week. The same thing goes with Kelce as a guy that until he's above that 5,000 mark, because I feel like that offense is a little bit more inconsistent and 5,000 is a more proper price for Kelce in that regard. Until his price is above 5,000, he's a guy that you have to play as his role just continues to increase. There's no reason he should be going for 3,000 at all. I don't get it. Thank you so much, DraftKings. You're making my lineup so much better.
I agree. I think at this point, again, we mentioned Allen at that price point, but Kelce at 3,000, you really can't go wrong. I'm going to go to our next tight end then, Zach Ertz. You just mentioned him. Also very, very cheap on DraftKings, $3,800. On FanDuel, he's $5,400. So really in that same Kelce price range on FanDuel. He just consistently gets the ball looked at, from about 20 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. My only issue is I don't think we've seen him in the end zone enough. And I'm starting to worry, especially with that performance against the 49ers last week, with that offensive line just getting absolutely dominated. But they get Lane Johnson back this week. They're going up against the St. Louis defense that has definitely underperformed thus far this year. I mean, I for one, thought they were going to be one of the best in the league, but clearly they haven't been. Do you think Philly actually goes to the tight end in the red zone this week, or do you think they're just going to run the ball up and down the field since St. Louis is one of the worst against the run so far?
Until that line improves, I don't see them running up and down the field on any team, let alone the Rams, who actually do have a pretty solid front seven with Ogletree, Laurinaitis, and that stacked line, even though Chris Long is out.
On paper, yeah, but you look at the numbers and they're just not performing yet.
Right. That makes sense, but at the same time, that line is bad. It doesn't. I get it. It's all about matchups in the NFL. If a team is really struggling on the line, it doesn't matter how good or bad the defense is. If that line is struggling, they're gonna struggle to find running lanes for McCoy and Sproles, and they're gonna be forced to throw the ball. And we've seen from Foles has been really inconsistent this year with his usage of almost every single target other than every week when he forces the ball to Riley Cooper for incompletions and drop passes. He always forces the ball to Macklin, even if he hits him or he doesn't. He's targeted him. It seems like 20 times a game.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, Chip Kelly isn't really using Ertz as much as we'd like him to, which is kind of goes back to my man crush on Ertz is in terms of his physical talent, but in terms of his usage rates, it's something that's really starting to concern me. At 3,800 though, that's a steal for a guy that could put up a top 3 tight end week any given week if he actually is given snaps and had the ball thrown at him. Other than that fumble last week, I haven't seen him drop a pass this year. I haven't seen him look bad on anything. When the ball is in his radius, he's catching it and he's going to puts up that range of 18 to 25 yards every time he catches the ball. And for a guy that if he's targeted and the ball is thrown to him every time he's targeted to get 3.5 points in DraftKings or a touchdown out of 1 or 2 of those throws, like he's so good. I just don't understand the usage rates. So that's the only reason I'm issuing caution on Ertz. If you're taking it at purely a value standpoint at his price and you're hoping that he gets used, it's a no-brainer. But in my opinion, Kelsey offers the greater value because we've seen a consistent rise in production and snap counts and usage, whereas Ertz, it's kind of we don't really know what we're getting as long as this line is playing pretty poorly.
Yeah, for sure. And looking at our next tight end, Heath Miller. The Steelers are playing the Jags this week, and Miller had a career day last week. I mean, I think it was 10 catches, 85 yards, and a score.
I think it was 10 targets for 8 catches and 89 yards and a score. Hold on, Miller.
Close enough. So either way, he got you 20 plus points, which I mean is incredible coming from a guy this week. $4,000 in DraftKings, $5,900 in FanDuel. I mean, do we see him improving this week, or at least doing something similar since they're going up against the Jags, who everybody has just been throwing on left and right all season long?
Yeah, you are also, by the way, you were right. It was 11 targets, 10 catches, 85 yards on the score, and he obviously had that other score. I know we talked about it earlier in the week. He had that other score that was reversed on the penalty, I believe it was. I see him having another week like that. Jaguars are not very good. If Le'Veon or Blunt don't pound the ball in the end zone, it seems like Roethlisberger has become a little bit more comfortable throwing towards Heath in the end zone again. Obviously, like we've talked about in the past, even though that second Heath Miller touchdown didn't count, you have to view that as a converted touchdown, the look, the completion of the play. Like you have to, in your mind, pretend that actually happened and that was another touchdown. I know it doesn't give you points the week before, but going forward, you know that those looks are going his way. So at 4,000 in a great matchup, he's definitely a good play. I feel like there are cheaper options for you, but if you want to spend a little bit extra money at the tight end spot without breaking the bank on a guy like Jimmy Graham or Julius Thomas, Heath Miller's a great play just based on his matchup.
Yeah. I mean, I like it. I like it a lot. My only concern was that he wasn't used all that much, if I remember correctly, at the beginning of the season, but his usage is starting to rise. So we'll see. We'll also see the Jags choose to concentrate on, because I mean Antonio Brown, he had a hell of a game last week as well. He won me a nice little bit in my league last week. I don't know who they're going to focus on, right? Because you can probably choose to stop Brown, but then you've got Heath Miller. Marcus Wheaton is injured this week, so they may not have to really, double team him. But who are they really going to take away from Big Ben? And if they do take one away, the other one's just going to pop off again. So we'll see how that all works out. And again, which we've seen in the past couple weeks, whoever plays the Jags goes up and up and up, kind of like tonight where they start taking out their starters in, the end of the third, the fourth quarter. So the Pittsburgh defense hasn't been all that great, but the Jags offense has been terrible. So we'll see, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But we'll see how that all turns out this week on Sunday. Again, 4,000 in DraftKings, 5,900 in FanDuel. Heath Miller, a solid play, but I think I like Kelsey or even Ertz a little bit more. Our Next tight end, Austin Seferian-Jenkins. We started recommending him last week. This week they go up against New Orleans. They're in the Superdome. He's going for $3,000 on DraftKings, $4,700 on FanDuel, so incredibly cheap on FanDuel. DraftKings as well, obviously. Tell me what you like about him this week. You think he gets into the end zone?
I'm not really sure. I think the only way he gets into the red zone is if they are down by so many points after Breeze lights them up that they're forced to throw, and then because Evans is out, if Jackson is double covered, then I feel like Austin Seferian-Jenkins is going to be that second option in the red zone, as opposed to being Mike Evans. Mike Evans being out is a big boost for Austin Seferian-Jenkins. Glennon needs some sort of security blanket. We did see a little bit of that with Lewis Murphy coming in and showing immediate chemistry with Glennon, getting the 10 targets for 6 catches and 99 yards, which should also help open up this passing game a little bit. New Orleans defense hasn't been all that great this year. I think we've seen that, and they're prone to losing games to bad teams like we saw against the Browns. But at home game at home, they really want to get back on the right track. I feel like this is one of those games where New Orleans is just going to dominate. But that's going to force Glennon to throw the ball more late and try to tack on a lot of junk points. Austin Seferian-Jenkins isn't a bad play, but obviously we've talked about some guys that we like a lot more. I don't know where the usage is going to come from unless it's being forced. But as a security, see him start to really rise up the rankings this week. It's just not. He's not somebody that I would trust to play yet, but I could easily foresee him having a big game, being a security blanket with Lewis Murphy, if for some reason Glennon can't get on the same page with Vincent Jackson.
Yeah, and at 6'7", I mean, he's never a bad target, especially in the red zone. But Glennon's 6'6" himself, so he'll have no problem seeing him. We'll move on to a viewer submission, actually the first one ever, so thank you very much. Clay Harbor. Talk to me about Clay Harbor, Alex. I asked you to look up some stuff on him. You said you already wrote about him in your article, so tell me. Go.
I really like this kid. I mean, if you guys listen to me last week and this week in the quarterback podcast, you guys know how I feel about Blake Bortles. I love Blake Bortles. He's the most promising quarterback prospect we have right now. I think he's better than Bridgewater, Manziel, any rookie that came in this year. He's got a cannon of an arm, but at the same time, he needs somebody as a security blanket. And with Mercedes Lewis out with that high ankle sprain for an extended period of time, and Marquise Lee still struggling to get healthy, and he's forced to his two wideouts that he can really rely on are an unproven Allen Robinson and Alan Hearns, who's an undrafted rookie that is showing up on the fantasy map. But for him to have Clay Harbor, he's not the most athletic tight end. He's not like a Kelsey or he's not like an Ertz, but he's a guy with a reliable hands. He caught eight of his targets, all 8 of his he caught for 69 yards. That's a great first game for a guy that was struggling to get healthy earlier in the year, and now he's showing that he's healthy. He's being given a great opportunity to really grow with Bortles and if Bortles is going to succeed, he really needs to throw the tight end just to give him some more space to throw the ball downfield to guys like Robinson and Hearns. I really like Clay Harbor. I think, like I said earlier, the athleticism is something that is concerning, but in the past we've seen tight ends that are not really athletic do pretty good things in the NFL if they're targeted enough, especially in PPR leagues. He's going to get the looks. He's going to have anywhere from 8 to 10 looks per game, in my opinion. The yardage won't be great because he's not that athletic catch-and-run type of tight end, but he's more of a, I'll catch the ball, somebody will tackle me, that's fine, but I'm going to catch the ball, you just have to tackle me kind of player. He's also a pretty big target, so I could see him starting to get end zone looks. We've seen in the past that Jacksonville does like to get their tight end involved in the red zone, which is why Mercedes Lewis has had value in years past. I just really like this Harbor kid, and I think he has a great opportunity, and I think it starts to rise this week.
And he's also I think he's punt play money. I didn't have a chance to look him up in FanDuel, but on DraftKings he's $3,000. So I mean, he's like you said, eight catches, targets last week. In DraftKings, that's a full 8 points. It added onto your total. 4 points in FanDuel. I mean, you can't get better than that. I think he's a sneaky play because I don't think too many people are going to look at anyone on the Jags offense really to own in order to really beef up their stats. I mean, other than Blake Bortles, right? So maybe you go with a Bortles and Harbor pairing, maybe to rival like the people who are going to go with Breeze and Graham. I don't know. Maybe you get lucky there, and the Jags just have to keep on throwing, and Harbor gets those targets just like he did last week.
Yeah, just like his floor. His floor, it seemed, if last week is any indication, Bortles is going to need to throw him the ball just to escape blitzers and keep from getting sacked, just to even little dump-off passes. I mean, it's not like he had outstanding yards, but to have a little bit less than, what is it, like a little less than 9 yards per catch, that's short to intermediate range where you know he's going to get the ball, you know that Bortles is going to look his way if he's in trouble. If Hearns or Robinson can't get open, the first guy he's going to look at is Clay Harbor. I feel like he's going to look at Clay Harbor more for those dump-offs than he's going to look for a Toby Gerhardt or a Denard Robinson, and it screams high floor to me. The upside isn't nearly as good as those other athletic tight ends, but if you need a good floor for bare bones pricing at $3,000, I promise you he will have at least 12 points this week.
So are you saying in a 50-50 you'd go Harbor over Kelsey, but in a tournament you'd go Kelsey over Harbor?
No, because I love Kelsey, but I feel like over an Austin Seferian-Jenkins or a Dwayne Allen or someone more like that is also at the same price, I would rather play Clay Harbor in a 50-50 and save the other guys for a tournament play. Okay. So I'll give you that. Alrighty. I think that's it, guys. We don't have any more questions from our listeners on Twitter or anything else I can see. So that's our running backs and tight ends for the week. Good luck to everyone out there. Go win some money this weekend. Go read Alex's Risers and Fallers article and all his other great stuff on fantasyknuckleheads.com. And make sure you guys subscribe to the podcast. This audio goes up on podcast, so if you can't catch the live show, make sure you catch us on iTunes and TuneIn Radio, whatever you guys use. So thank you guys very much. That's week 5 for us. We'll catch you next time. I have an interesting thing